Well, hello everyone. My name is Coriel Cooper. I am here with Miss Nicke Haney from Sheen magazine. She's with Brown Girls Reads, and we're going to speak a little bit on her community work with Spartanburg and the surrounding areas, and Brown Girls Read what they do.
I'm Nicke Haney, and I'm the founder of Brown Girls Read Book Club. Brown Girls Read was started in January of 2020. Brown Girls Read is a book club for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade brown girls. Brown Girls Read was originated just purely out of me wanting to share my love of reading with my niece. I wanted her to just develop a love of reading like I've always had as a child, but I knew that for her it would have to be with her friends because she's a little social butterfly. So that's where the concept of book club came from. I brought in her friends so that we can read the book, have some snacks, drink a little bit of Kool-Aid, and just enjoy the book that we read for the month. And 2 years later, it has started to transform into something a little bigger than just a book club. Once I started Brown Girls Read and working with my niece and talking to her friends, I was asking them how did they feel about the readings that they were doing in school. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, Miss Nicke, we don't like to read in school. And I'm like, well, why not? What's going on? And they were telling me that the books in school were just boring and they didn't want to read them. And I took that in, I kind of stored it away in my mind, and then I started researching the report card for South Carolina, and I was seeing that kids of color were reading on an average to a below average reading level. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that can't be right. I mean, I've grown up with readers, so for them to not be reading on grade level was just foreign to me. And then I continued to research, and I saw that that states are building jail cells based on third grade reading scores. Wow. And I'm like, okay. So we're talking about incarcerating third graders before we're talking about educating them. So yeah, and I see the look on your face. The number of cells that's within a prison is based off third grade reading scores. Because the thought process is if you can't read in the third grade, then as you progress, you're not going to be able to read much better, but you're also going to find yourself either working minimum wage jobs or doing some type of criminal activity to get by, which is going to land you in prison. And so I'm like, okay, well, this can't happen, at least not on my watch. Mm-hmm. So then I kind of refocused my thought process when it came to Brown Girls Read, and it became a mission of we need to get these girls up to par. And in order to get them up to par when it comes to reading is to make the books relatable to them. They have to be able to build a relationship with the characters in the book. Okay, if I can make these books relatable, characters that they can build relationships with, mm-hmm. then they can have an open discussion about the books. And that's all reading comprehension is being able to have a conversation about the material that you've read. On top of that, if they can start to have a conversation about the books, that's improving their public speaking skills because they can speak on the information that they found in the book. So it all kind of plays into each other, so to speak. And that's the mission of Brown Girls Read. Now it's an avenue for girls to come fine-tune their reading comprehension skills, fine-tune their writing skills, fine-tune their public speaking skills, while also improving those standardized test scores that they take in school.
What are your plans for Brown Girls Read in the future?
Okay, so right now I'm working with 4th, 5th, and 6th grade girls. And I look at that as my beginning stage. Okay. My next group will be 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then I will have a third group, which is 10th, 11th, and 12th. Okay. So by the time they get to 10th, 11th, and 12th, we're going to concentrate more on college prep and career readiness once we get to that stage. But for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, we're going to continue our journey of being exposed to books written by authors of color, with characters of color, with situations that the girls are going through.
No, that's awesome. Yes. I do want to take a step back and ask a quick question. Mm-hmm. With jail cells being built based on third grade reading level, what made you start with 4th grade versus starting with third grade?
That is a great question. And I'm glad you asked me that because no one has asked me so far. I start with 4th grade because you have to be able to, one, have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to read fluid enough in order to have that conversation. So we're talking about third graders. They're really just getting into their rhythm of reading. That's one of the reasons why I think it's unfair to put so much pressure on third graders to score well, because they're really just now developing the rhythm of reading, right? Because there's a rhythm to it, right? And they're just now really developing that fully. But by the time they're in the fourth grade, those girls can speak fluidly, they can read chapter books, they have an opinion, they've seen enough in society to where they have an opinion about social issues as well. For instance, we were discussing The Skin I'm In by Sharon Flake in one of our meetings. And we were talking about how the color of your skin and the color of the clothes you wear sometimes determine how people perceive you, right? So if you're a dark-skinned girl that wear a lot of dark clothes, people can perceive you as being mean or a threat in today's society. You know, we as Black women, we know that's not true,
right?
But society would see us that way.
Okay.
Or if you're a young Black boy that wears a dark hoodie and have the hood on your head walking up the street, someone may perceive you as being a threat, right? So they're at the age to where they can express how they feel about those type of social issues as it relate to the characters on the storyline of the book. So that's why I choose fourth grade to start, because they are now developing their opinions and they can speak fluidly and they can read a chapter book with very little difficulty.
So it's like crawling before you walk.
Exactly.
Now that's good information. How long have you seen that impact grow?
Like I said, Brown Girls Read has only been in existence for 2 years. Okay, so we're still trying to map out our growth. But I can tell you that from the girls that I have had that have been with me since the beginning, the fact that they keep coming back is key that they're enjoying the program. One little girl, her name is Skylar. She's a sixth grader. And this year she was actually promoted to honor sixth grade.
Congratulations, Skylar.
Exactly. So I will say that their grades are improving. Their confidence is improving as well. Like I said, public speaking, writing skills, all of those things are confidence builders. And there's another little girl.
Okay.
And her name is Hazel. And you will actually hear Hazel on my podcast on my website. Hazel is a sixth grader. She's extremely shy, but as sweet as she can be. I love Hazel. And I wanted Hazel to have a platform so that she can start using her voice confidently. So what I decided to do was make Hazel the co-host on my Brown Girls Read podcast.
Oh, wow.
So if you were to go to browngirlsread.org and click on one of the podcasts, you will be able to hear Hazel. And you will hear at the beginning of our podcast, her voice was soft and kind of withdrawn because she was nervous. But by the time we ended our podcast in November, she was actually the host and I was the co-host.
Oh, wow.
So her confidence had built to the point to where she was no longer in the background. She was in the forefront and she was feeling good about that. So I used those two girls of examples of the power of reading. So a book is a powerful thing.
It really is. It's a very powerful tool. Very powerful. Okay. Where do you see your program within the next year?
I want to have Brown Girls Read within the school system as an after-school program.
That would be great.
So right now, Brown Girls Read meets once a month, every second Saturday of the month. But if I can be in front of these girls once a week, every week, after school, I think it would have a bigger impact on them.
I agree with you there. Now let's take a step back. Your podcast, is it Brown Girls Read or is it another name?
No, it's Brown Girls Read as well.
Okay.
It's a Brown Girls Read podcast. And once again, it's on my website.
What are the characteristics you desire to see in your community with Brown Girls Reads?
Okay, so as far as individual girls or even adults that want to be a part of Brown Girls Read, you have to have a love of reading in order to understand the impact that it can have on these girls. To an understanding that when I say Brown Girls Read, it doesn't necessarily mean just African American girls. That's the reason why I named it Brown Girls, because I'm talking about Hispanic, I'm talking Indian, I'm talking about Latina, I'm talking about African American, I'm talking Asian, because we need to embrace all of these different cultures and learn about each other. So even though Brown Girls Read is predominantly African American right now, and we're reading predominantly African books by African American authors, once I start getting more Indian girls and more Latina girls, then we're going to start going researching those authors and those books as well, so that they can start learning about each other and start embracing each other's culture and history and triumphs and tribulations. And I think that will bring the community closer together once we can do that.
What does integrity mean to you?
Being who you are regardless of who's watching you.
How did you transition that love from childhood to adulthood to where you were able to make a business out of it?
I've always loved educating and seeing people grow. So the love of it is what started. What transformed it into a business is the need for it. There's a little girl named Destiny, and I just so happened to be at her house. Her parents invited me to a dinner party one day. So I was there, and Destiny, she looked around her corner of her house and said, "Nicke, come in." And I said, "Okay." So I walked back to her room, and she said, "Close the door." I said, "Okay." And she had one of the other Brown Girl members in her room. They were playing. And I said, "Okay, what's going on?" She said, "Now let's talk about." And she started talking about the characters in the book.
Okay.
So we're sitting here, the three of us, having this miniature book club meeting, just the three of us. And they're telling me their thoughts on the book and how the characters should have done this, that, or the third. And they were foreshadowing and what was going to happen next before they even got to the next chapter. And I'm like, okay, y'all are really into this. And the fact that they brought me in to discuss it really said a lot about how they're enjoying the book. And these are two little girls that just joined Brown Girls Read in September of this year.
Wow.
And they are that engaged and enjoying the group that much, to that degree. So I think that is just awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. My heart just fluttered when she did it. I had to come back and call my mom. Because it really brought joy to me that, and their faces just lit up with light. And that's what and I'm not knocking the school system, let me say that, but that's what they're missing in the school system.
I agree.
Because the books that they're reading really does not,
it
there's
doesn't
any type of
connect.
emotion with them because they can't relate to it. And that's what I love about Brown Girls Read, is that every book that I put in front of these girls, and they get a different book every month, a new book that they take home. I don't take the books back or store them away in my closet for a rainy day. They get to keep these books to start their own library. And by having these books that they're building these relationships with, they want to know what's going to happen in the next book or the next series of that particular book, which is going to drive them to continue to read, to continue to purchase that next book or that next genre, to just see what the next genre is going to be about. It just opens up their minds to so many things.
Let me ask you this very last question. What comes to mind when you hear the word ethic?
Your morals, the principles that you stand on, how you live your life. You should always give more than you receive. Life is so very short. And if you always living your life to take, then you never truly find the joy of what it means to give or to see a child's face light up. And let me give you an example. One of my girls, my Brown girls, in our first meeting, I was passing out the books. And she said, "Well, Miss Nicke, do we have to give this book back to you?" I'm like, "No, baby, keep the book." She said, "Well, what about when this program is over? Do we have to give the books back?" I said, "No, baby, these books belong to you." And she did this little jig in her, right there in place. And her face just lit up simply by giving a book. And I remember as a child, people were giving me books and how much joy it brought to me. So, the book might not have cost no more than $10, but to her, in that moment, it was the best thing since chocolate cake or Christmas Day, So, once again, you need to give more than you receive and always treat people the way that you want to be treated. And as long as you do those two things, I can't see your life not being fulfilling.
Okay. Is there anything additional you would like to share with us, our viewers, in regards to Brown Girls Read that we haven't discussed?
Well, I would just ask that if anyone wants to support the effort, we're always looking for sponsors or investors because once again, every month these girls get another book, a new book to keep. And our program lasts from September to May. So it lasts a school year. So that's 9 books a year that these girls are receiving. So if anybody wants to sponsor or donate to us, you can always go to our website, browngirlsread.org, and there's a donate button in the right-hand corner. We'll be happy to do so. Or if you just want to stop by and see what we're all about, just give me a call. You can always find me at browngirlsread.org or Nicke at browngirlsread.org. The podcast, once again, is on my website. So you go to browngirlsread.org and there'll be a link on that front page. You can click on that and you'll have all the episodes.
Well, Miss Nicke, we thank you for your time today. Brown Girls Read, everyone. We thank you for your views. Definitely support this cause. It's a great benefit to the community and not only to the children in our community, but your community as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me.